Mind. Well, first, I'm president of Exeter, a lifetime career as an engineer, and so I've understood a lot. Just going back and forth. It's kind of caused me to evaporate.
Dudley, speaking to the mic.
Evaporate the questions that I had, because a lot of them are pretty much answered, or the answer is really murky, and I have no comment under those conditions. I do come down to one question, because I've dealt with structures and I've modeled complex systems and so on, and there must have been a model of the integrity and the operationability of this system. They must have been able to come up with a design lifetime. After 20 years, after 40 years, after 60 years, and so on. My guess is that when that design was made, and when the prediction of the design lifetime was made, it probably was not concerned with water, and almost definitely, I would guess, no question or no concern about ASR. So there was a lifetime, design lifetime, that was used. Now, if you step back from all of this, there's a vast experiment going on. You've got a complicated system. The environment, Mother Nature, is having an effect on the system and its materials. And I wonder, what about the design lifetime now? And what it will be, what's the dynamics of that design lifetime calculation? That's basically what I'm interested in.
Thank you. Chris?
It's not going to get better. It would seem as if it's going to get worse.
It's a good point that you bring up. First of all, let me just mention that there was some concern for building the structures with the right materials such that ASR would not be an issue. And you know, the testing that was done was not, at that time, was not enough to prevent this problem. So so it's a good point. So now you're asking, how much longer will the plant last, I think is your question. Our efforts here that we're talking about today are to ensure that if the plant is operated, you know, as long as its current license allows, that all those systems, structures, and components, and right now we're talking mainly structures, that they can last. And so those are some of the testing, some of the crack growth models that we're looking at. That's what we're making. That's what we're trying to ask ourselves. What is the licensee doing to ensure that they have a handle on this effect, and whether the structures will be operable for the remainder of their current license. Now, break, you know, you have another action going on. That is, you know, can those structures support another 20 years beyond that? And that's a different discussion, but it is one that is being actively discussed between the licensee and the NRC. There's a lot of information being submitted to the NRC on the docket. It's a publicly available information. The licensee is responding to those questions. And this will be a part of it. This ASR issue will be a part of it. It's already been a factor in the NRC's reviews. It's already delayed the reviews to answer just exactly the question. So it's a great question that you ask. You know, we haven't made a determination on that, but there's a lot of information being passed back and forth so that the NRC can do an adequate review to ensure that the licensee is doing the things that it would take and before we would issue them a license for another 20 years. So it's a good question. We don't have an answer to it yet.
Chris, we have 5 minutes and a number of questions. I think we really only have time for one more question.
Okay.
And so it's going to
Why don't
last.
you ask the people who would like to stay to listen to all of the questions?
Yes,
Well,
we don't
have to
the
hang it
NRC
on.
will stay here, sir. You're underestimating your colleagues over there. They will stay
Well,
until the end.
I'm not underestimating anything. I'm just going by what the schedule is. Hold on for a second. No, you can't just say, forget the schedule.
Ask them.
The
They're going to
problem
stay
is
till we're
that there's
done.
never problems. No, I don't know that that's always
They
true.
will.
We'll try to answer, if you want to stay for, if we have the room for another, what, 15, 20 minutes? No, we don't. No more than half an hour. And we can probably get through 3 or 4 more questions at this rate. If people stick to the time period, we may be able to get through some more. I have 10 questions left. I don't think I'm gonna get through all of them. So,
The public health and safety is really important. 5 or 10 or 15 minutes isn't a
well-
big issue. Excuse me.
well, I'm sorry, but we've been doing this for 2 hours, and if people had stuck with the schedule as originally agreed upon, we would have been able to get through all these things, and all of our friends here would have been at their opportunity. Mr. Doug Bogan, is that right?
Yes.
Please, thank you. Please, Mr. Bogan, 2 minutes, please. Be succinct.
Oh, now it's 2 minutes. I was first told 3, and before we weren't told anything. But, we'd like to get our time, and I'll try to be brief, but I do have some important points that I don't think have been brought up previously. I'm Doug Bogan. I'm director of Seacoast Anti-Pollution League, as mentioned before, based in Exeter. I wanted to provide a little comment, a little broader context of on the interrelation of other issues that we've seen at Seabrook that seem to portend a premature degradation of much of the infrastructure. And it was referred to earlier, the tritium problem in the water, in the subsurface structures. First detected back in 1999. I don't know if that's the earliest it's been seen at a nuclear plant, but certainly the plant was less than 10 years old when that was first evidence, and they've been pumping the groundwater ever since. Since then, we heard about steam generator tubes corroding, having to be plugged up sometime back in the last decade. More recently, we heard about groundwater leaking into the surface areas of the plant, filling tunnels up to 6 feet deep in some cases. And now we hear that the foundations are starting to degrade. And it seems to me these things could be interrelated, especially the water issues. We haven't, I don't think, heard enough about water tonight. It was good to hear some discussion earlier about the salinity of the water, lack of salinity, and the flow of the water. But I asked over 2 years ago at a previous, I believe, the scoping meeting for the EIS about a hydrological study. I don't know if you don't make all the reports public. I try to read all the documents and reports that are put out for the public, and I haven't seen anything to that effect. This is frankly the first I've heard about any discussion of the flow of water on the site. But I think it's important to point out that we keep hearing that the plant's 20 feet above sea level. That's good to hear, certainly, but we all know that much of the plant and certainly the foundations are much below sea level. I believe 80 feet or more down into the ground. And I'm sure that many of these locations where you're finding ASR are below ground level. So could I just get a verification on that? The annulus, these various walls, these are subsurface structures. So my point is that we'd like to know more about the water, and we'd like to know whether you're treating it as a dynamic system rather than a static situation. It seems, the analysis seems to stop at the walls of the plant. And we all know that sea level is rising. It's likely to rise faster in coming years. We know that even though the plant buildings themselves may be 20 feet above, much of the land surrounding the plant is not, according to several maps that I've seen, USGS data. And, you know, how high are the seawalls? How much protection is there from rising seas? I think this has become much more problematic after Hurricane Sandy. We all know more about storm surge and the impacts. And I would refer you to a study done just a year ago now by folks at the University of New Hampshire looking at specific climate impacts, storm surge impacts on the seacoast area, including Seabrook Hampton Harbor. So we would like to hear more about that. If you can elucidate any more on it tonight, we'd appreciate that, because I think these are important points.
Thank you.
If you recall, when we were talking about seismic and the NRC putting out an order to upgrade for utilities to look at seismic responses, they're also putting out, or we also have put out an order, and it's based on our Fukushima lessons learned, that said, hey, you need to look at flooding. Maximum probable flood is the information that you based your design upon. Is it still accurate? Is it going to be? Is it based on most current information? So that order is out. Another consideration of the commission is to require that a review of those items every 10 years. Now that's not final. The commission is still deciding on whether that is something that needs to be done. It's what's in our what's called our Tier 3 actions. So we've gone through Tier 1 actions and we're going into Tier 2 and Tier 3. But so the every 10-year review would be something that would come up based on that. Along with that, the NRC partners with other federal agencies and also international agencies on warming and what the rising sea levels. We work with NOAA. So we are aware of of the potential, and the licensees will review those considerations as they review their flooding requirements. So that's what we're doing.
But is it being tied in with this study of ASR? It seems highly relevant. You know, where the groundwater is and how fast it's flowing in, what sort of pressure you've got.
I would just add that the groundwater study is important from the point of view of control of tritium. It may or may not be a part of the solution or remediation for ASR, and that's too soon to tell right now. But it is important to know where tritium is and where it may migrate, and that's, I know the NextEra has done a hydrology study, but they're not ready to share it with the NRC yet.
Thank you.